President Biden's State of the Union address Thursday is the last one before the general election. Guests include IVF patients, gun control activists, recipients of student loan debt relief, and many more. Joining me now from outside Capitol Hill is CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns and our chief Washington correspondent, Major Garrett. Look at you all. What a great setting.
It could not be more beautiful, John.
I know.
Lovely March evening.
Yes. Well, wonderful. We're very glad to be with you. Major, let's start with you. What are you listening for tonight?
So, John, the context around this speech is much more political than any other State of the Union address that I've covered, dating back to the early 1990s. Why do I say this? Well, it's March. Super Tuesday was just earlier this week. The nomination battle is over, and the nation will see a president addressing not only the state of the nation, but the state of his re-election campaign. And the last time, John, that a presidential nominating contest was over this early, in March, was 2004. The State of the Union that year occurred January 20th, one day after the Iowa caucuses, which, if memory serves, both you and I covered. And the nomination battle wasn't over. The nation didn't have a clear idea of what the general election matchup would be. Now it does. So this is not just any ordinary State of the Union. It has a direct political impact. The largest audience President Biden will have until the Democratic National Convention in August, the largest audience either he or former President Trump will have until the Republican Convention in July. It's a potential springboard. If the president lands this speech well, it possibly could propel him. If he misses this opportunity, another one like it won't come again until August.
You know, it's a great point, and there's a good chance, you know, given the way conventions go, maybe this is a bigger audience. I don't know.
Possibly.
It could be people on vacation. Caitlin, what do we know? So, State of the Unions are funny. They're a laundry list of 1,000 different things, and yet the White House tries to hit us right between the eyes with what the speeches are about. So, what do you think the main takeaways that they would like to be in this speech are?
Yeah, John, and that's also apparent in the excerpts that they give us before the speech is even given. We were talking earlier about how there's so much lead up to the speech that you kind of know everything there is to know before it's given. But when you look at the excerpts, that really tells you kind of these three points that they want to drive home. And the first is addressing reproductive rights, especially in the overturning of Roe versus Wade. We know this is going to be a major campaign theme from the president and from Democrats, a theme that they believe has been, reintroduced to the public consciousness with the court decision in Alabama regarding IVF. So he's going to be focusing on that. Obviously, the economy and democracy. This is also a big point of the president's re-election campaign. This idea of defending democracy.
Major, every presidential address to Congress since January 6th has included more security, fences around the grounds. What does that say to you, and what does it look like? You've been to these, you've watched this. What's the vibe there?
So this is the post-Capitol riot reality of a State of the Union address. John, there's always been the closing of the main avenues here, Constitution, Independence. There's always been a larger and more visible Capitol Police presence, but tonight, the fences that surrounded the Capitol starting January 7th, 2021 are back up. Iron fences, 8 feet tall, black as night. And as those fences have gone up, so have National Guard patrols begun to make themselves more visible around the entire Capitol complex. That's not just a reflection of what happened that awful day, January 6, 2021, when the Capitol was besieged by rioters supporting former President Trump, but what's happened since then. And this is a bipartisan problem, John. Threats to members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, House members and Senate members, are on the rise, and steadily so since January 6, 2021. So the overall security posture here at the Capitol is reinforced, and on a night like this, doubly so.
Caitlin, since, as we've been talking, this is a campaign speech, as Major pointed out so nicely, voters talk about the economy as their big concern. The president has a lot of defense to play on that issue, but this is a night where presidents can sometimes offer an offense, or at least make the case. What are you hearing about how Biden will handle that issue tonight?
Yeah, that's a big challenge for any president, but especially this one, when you see the numbers on paper are not matching what voters are feeling. We see that in our polling, but we also have been talking to a lot of voters over the course of the past several months covering these campaigns. And you talk to voters on, Republicans and Democrats who just don't feel good about the way things are going right now. I mean, one excerpt that the president has in his speech is going to be the idea that he came into office during one of the toughest periods and has kind of rebuilt. So he's going to likely do a lot of reminding people of what he came into versus what he has done. But this also presents the challenge for this administration, of course, is you can tell people how you think they should feel, but if they are not feeling it, that is difficult to change. And voters, Americans measure the economy differently than an administration does, or that economic numbers usually indicate. People, are paying more for things even though inflation is technically down. They just feel like their bottom lines things just feel difficult right now. So using that empathy that his advisors have told us that he will really be leaning into, but still telling people how to feel is difficult.
It sure is. Caitlin Huey-Burns and Major Garrett, you'll both be anchoring at 8 p.m. here on the stream. Thanks for being with me first. We'll see you then. Bye. And after the State of the Union and all the analysis, if you need more analysis, be sure to tune in to The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. I'll be a guest on tonight's program. That's at 11:35 p.m. Eastern on CBS and on Paramount Plus.